if we're not conscious about how we're showing up and how we're choosing to spend our spare time, whether that is that kind of blobbing on the couch rest, going for a nap, or whether it's doing something that's more of an active rest, more of a productive type rest that's going to rejuvenate us, if we're not conscious of that, we're at complete risk of our spare time being stolen by whatever happened early in the day, which is exactly what happened to me last week. The reason to tune into this is to reclaim your evenings or whatever time you have away from the clinical environment.
Hello, my beautiful friends. My name is Dr. Beck.
And I am Christine Barker, and this is Am I Doing It Wrong? A podcast for doctors by doctors. Dr. Beck is a mindset coach and medical doctor who specialises in liberating driven professional women from the limitations of perfectionism, imposter syndrome, and people pleasing. She's basically the cheat code for getting out of your own way, showing up authentically, and living a life you're proud of.
And Christine is a medical educator and nephrologist who creates resources for doctors in training that I truly think are an unfair advantage. She makes complex topics super simple and takes the pain and uncertainty out of passing your medical exams. Christine and I connected a few years ago via our online platforms, and over the years we've discussed countless highs, lows, and in-betweens of doctor life. And in doing so, we've experienced firsthand the power of vulnerable conversations to show us where we're getting in our own way and underestimating our capacity.
So we want you to be part of the conversation and experience these same results. Every week on the pod, we'll be bringing you conversations which shine light in dark places, normalise the doctor journey, ease unnecessary suffering, and give you actionable steps to thrive in all facets of your life. So grab a cuppa and get cozy for this week's episode of Am I Doing It Wrong? The podcast for doctors by doctors. Hello, my beautiful friends, my doctor humans. Welcome to the podcast. Today, Beck and I are going to talk a little bit about, I guess it follows on from what we talked about last week on the pod. So if you missed that episode, totally go back and check that out. We were talking about, to be honest, a really bad day that I had, a clinical day, and I was not wanting to do medicine anymore, never wanted to go to clinic again. Can anyone relate to that? So we talked about that last week. And then this week, it feels like the perfect time to talk about the sort of counterbalancing that we can do, getting rest, filling up our cup. But more than that, what we want to talk about today is a new way to think about rest and whether you're getting enough rest. What does rest mean to you? And is there a way that you can sort of plan out your week or change your behavior to get more rest than you currently are getting? So I think, Beck, I am super keen to jump into your thoughts on this because I know you have a lot of concepts and strategies around this. What's your take on this concept of rest and how we can get more of it?
Yeah, I think the first thing we need to do is to understand what we mean when we say we want rest, because it's the most common statement in the world, isn't it? That I want more rest, I need more rest, I haven't rested enough, I just need to rest this weekend, this afternoon. The word rest gets thrown around, and I think we're not quite being specific enough. And the only reason that I want us to be more specific is so that we can serve ourselves better in this goal of rest. So for a lot of us, I think when we say we need rest, we generally think of two different things. Usually rest as an action, as being still in the moment, as doing less, as using less energy, usually in our physical movements. So the action or experience, the action of being still, or the experience usually of having ease in our body, I think is one way that we, or one thing that we think about when we say we want rest. And then on the other hand, I think we also often implicitly want the result of rest, which is to feel rejuvenated or restored. And I think it's really important to separate these two things out for ourselves, because one and the other, or one doesn't necessarily lead to the other, or vice versa. You can actually have one without the other, and one doesn't necessarily lead to the other. These are two different things that can overlap. Picture a bit of a Venn diagram here. But when you get clear about what you really want, when you say you want rest or you need rest or you haven't had enough rest, then we can actually target your behaviors, your decisions, and your precious, precious time when you're already tired to actually get what you want out of this rest. So just to recap, you've got two broad goals or categories of rest. One is the experience of ease in your body, usually just associated with being still. And two is the result of rest, meaning feeling more energized, feeling less tired, getting more energy back from the resting activity or period. Do you have anything to add to that, Christine, or what are your thoughts on those sort of categories?
I'm just thinking about how, right, so I take me back to last week when that horrible day I had, and I came in and I basically just blobbed on the couch. And I blobbed on the couch. I then found some energy to journal about why I was so blobbing on the couch and I was so miserable. And I was sure resting, but it wasn't making me feel any better. And then really, I just did that until I went to bed. And then the next day I got up and had a better day. Like that was, but I guess what you're saying is that I could have maybe done something different. I could have gone for a walk or found some other way of improving my mood or improving my vitality. So I think that's such an interesting concept. And I think what's hard is to know when to do what, because every bone in my body was just like, I am drained. I am now blobbing on the couch. But equally, like, I don't want to really be that person. Like, you know what I mean? I would like to leave clinic behind and I would like to have a nice evening and do something that rejuvenates me. So I'm fascinated by this concept. So I guess in terms of that, coming home from work and you're tired, and we've got these two options. We've got just rest that is going to make our body feel at ease and we're sitting still in that moment, or we've got the type of rest that's more like an activity that rejuvenates us. Do you have like some tips on what you do or things that you would recommend that we tap into in order to do the rejuvenation pathway?
Yeah, well, I really like the way that we talk about it when you and I talk about rest with the deposits and withdrawals. I think that's a good system for us to think about when we are resting for the purpose of increasing our level of energy. When we want to rest because we want the result of rest, we want to feel better, brighter, more energized. We want to rest in order to feel restored or rejuvenated. And there's nothing wrong with the wanting to just collapse into bed even. Like I have been known to go to bed at the end of a clinical day because I feel so tired sometimes. And that's not a problem for me necessarily, unless spending that time just being still was taking away from my goals or something else that I wanted to do. Or B, if I was under the impression that rest was actually creating the rejuvenation that I wanted. Because certainly a bit of downtime, a bit of being still, a bit of just collapsing and letting your body have no tone and your mind have no thoughts as you're like distracted and consumed by this brilliant TV series. The effect that stillness can offer you in terms of lifting your energy can be limited. And the reason we're bringing this up today is because a lot of us think that the only thing we can do to feel more energy when we feel tired is be still. And we just want to throw that myth out the window. We want to bring it up to your attention so that you know, as Christine was saying, being still isn't necessarily the thing that is going to give you that change in your energy. It's definitely not that it's a bad thing. It's definitely not that we're saying that just creating ease in your body isn't something that's really useful. And if you're coming home and you are happy to spend, an hour of downtime, but then after that hour, you're like, I've got things to do. I've got people I want to see. I want to show up as a bigger, brighter version of myself. Then let's look at resting as a result. Let's look at what do I need to do with this time, or what is most strategic for me to do with this time in order to get the result of lifting my energy up higher. It might be being still. It might be creating ease in your body, collapsing and watching TV, or it might be something that does the opposite, that creates discomfort, that totally shakes up your body. For example, going to the gym. For me, going to the gym and lifting heavy weights is something that ironically gives me energy, not in general, but immediately after I do it. Actually, as I'm doing it, I notice that I start to feel better as I'm ironically exerting myself more. So this is leading us into that concept of deposits, thinking about what activities deposit into our energy bank versus what withdraw. Because as we talked about last week, and as Christine mentioned, we have challenging clinical days that can take some pretty significant withdrawals out of the bank, hour after hour after hour. And so when you come home, you're a bit out of balance and you might be in need of adding some significant deposits into the tank. So, Christine, I know you're quite in tune with your energy. I mean, that's an understatement. Christine is very in tune with her energy. I actually think it's one of her most magic, amazing skills that I am trying to learn more from her about. So, I'd love to hear, what are some of the deposits that you have that you notice can really elevate your energy bank, that they can move you up that energetic and emotional scale?
Oh my goodness. I have a whole toolbox for this. Now, I don't want to get too woo, but I could go there. I'm very woo. But there was a few years ago, it was when I finished my training and I had this period of where I was completely burnt out. And I came across this concept of deliberately tuning into your energy, like how you're feeling, and focusing on deliberately making that better. So getting up in the morning and making it a conscious choice to be a happier person, right? And once you start to do that, the main side effect of that is that once you're able to make a conscious choice to be a happy person, any sort of like derailment when you become an unhappy person, I'm sure I was living my training through my training until I became a consultant. I'm pretty sure I was living from that place where I felt terrible all the time, and that was just my normal. And so I didn't know. But once you start to tune into this and you can control your energy and control your happiness a little bit better, you find that the lows feel more low, but the highs are great, and you can be there more often. So I do so many things as a whole toolbox, and I'm keen to hear your toolbox. And you've mentioned exercise. One of the things that I did a while back was I wrote a list of, when I was a child, all the things that brought me joy. Because I think when we are children, that's all we're doing, we just get up in the morning and we just follow our joy. And then we get socialized out of it. But if you liked coloring in or building Legos or painting or singing or playing an instrument or roller skating, whatever it is, those things that you did as a child, I can almost guarantee would still bring you joy if you just did them. So I think making a list of joyful things, because I think as adults and as doctors and everything's awful serious, we actually forget that part of ourselves. So I would say anything like that, build your joy list, and then you can spend 5-10 minutes a day just focusing on that. But the other thing that you actually mentioned, Beck, was just going outside. Like before we came on, Beck was talking about going outside, and I was thinking, yeah, I can blob on the couch or I can blob on the grass, and it definitely feels better on the grass. That's another thing. So I absolutely love the outdoor vibe. I think I don't know why, but it just changes everything. There's so much energy out there. And I think the other thing is connection with other people. So I'm an introvert and I love rejuvenating and sort of charging my batteries on my own. I would say that's the main thing I do. Or the main way that I recharge is on my own. But equally, I think I have insight into how sometimes when we are like a bit meh, human connection with the right people can fill us up, right? So like just a one-on-one, maybe not like a big social event, but just someone important. And I guess I wanted to ask you a little bit about that, Beck, as well, because you would identify as an introvert as well, wouldn't you? Do you find connection helpful, or do you find it something that you avoid when you're trying to fill up your cup?
I know 100%. And I've done a bit of work on this myself too, because I was wondering how much of my introvertedness was coming from my mindset. And when I was doing that exploration of myself, I definitely became aware that when I go out into certain settings and with certain people, with most people actually, I'd say, and in most settings, I tend to have this higher level of vigilance. It's almost like I'm a bit more alert to the potential threats in my surrounding. And with that, my tendency is to try to edit myself and filter myself a bit. And so I wonder how much of my introvertedness and how much, where in general, I find that when I spend time with lots of people or in big groups or with people that perhaps I don't instantly feel very safe with or know very well even, I wonder how much of my introvertedness comes from the fact that I have those thoughts that they're not distressing, but they're just enough to create this tension in my body, which is going to produce a bit of an aversion for me. If I associate that when I'm in these settings with other people, I feel even a little tiny bit of discomfort, it makes sense that I prefer them less. And so it's useful to recognize that. I guess I'm saying all of this because what is a deposit versus a withdrawal in your life is highly individual. Because for a lot of people, for my partner, for example, he gets energized by going out and being with people, and he can make friends with anyone. He will chat away for hours with somebody he just met like literally 2 minutes ago and could even have almost nothing in common with. But it's a very energizing experience for him. Whereas for me, there are certain people in my life who I reach for when I'm feeling tired, because I know that my specific connection with them, the way that they make me feel because of the way that they make me think or think less, actually gives me more energy, and it starts to move me up that energy scale of feeling more tired and doing more things that are more exhausting, i.e. being vigilant, being on guard, versus being able to relax and express myself and see myself and just be myself in that moment. That moves me up my energy scale. So I love every single thing that you've said here, going all the way back to that. I would highly recommend you do the childhood joy list. And actually, Christine's mentioned this to me before, and admittedly, I didn't do it at the time. I was like, that's such a good idea, I'm going to do it. And then life went on and I didn't do it. But I'm going to do that too, because we can't just say do a painting, do a puzzle, sing a song, do a dance, and that's a withdrawal. It really is about you getting out there and testing out the different things that seem high yield to you, but then actually noticing, how does this make me feel in the moment, and how does it make me feel after? Because again, probably socializing is another thing where it makes me feel good in the moment, but I feel tired afterwards. So it's something that perhaps I'll do for enjoyment and just because I appreciate these certain people, or et cetera, but it's not necessarily something that I will reach for if I want to have the result of feeling more energy and rested. I actually would find that is a bit of a withdrawal as much as I enjoy it at the time. So this is really why we love this idea of deposits and withdrawals so much. And we want you guys to take this concept and use it to start to ask yourself, what is a deposit for me and what is a withdrawal? Is socializing with this person a deposit or a withdrawal in terms of how it affects me, my energy in total? Does it move me up the energy scale afterwards, or does it move me down? This doesn't mean that you have to drop relationships that move you down or anything. It's just to say that if you have a specific strategic result when you're very tired from your clinical day, you only have so much energy and you want to show up as your best self the next day, then we want to be making these strategic decisions to make sure that we're moving ourselves back up the energy scale so we can show up again the next day.
And I guess if you're listening to that and you're feeling like that actually sounds a bit, oh, I don't feel like being childlike today, like that's fine. Just park that, shelve that for another time. But I think just tapping into something you said there made me think about songs and music. And I was actually thinking about how funny it is that I kind of sad songs make me feel amazing. I love a good sad song. I don't know why, but also uplifting songs make me feel amazing. But just music in general, just pop on some tunes, just see what happens. It's pure magic.
Can I add something to that? Because recently I've been recognizing that crying for me is probably actually a deposit, right? Stay with me, guys. So this is how far you can take this concept if you start to get in tune with how your thoughts affect you. or how your emotions affect you, how your behaviors affect you. So for me, I've started to recognize that even though the experience of crying it feels kind of exhausting at the time. Like it's a very effortful thing to cry and be with those distressing thoughts. It doesn't feel like something that is restful. But very reliably, when I let myself cry, the result from that is that I feel better afterwards. I feel lighter. Light is the word that's come to mind. It's almost like holding in my sadness, resisting my sadness, not letting me cry. It was taking energy. It's like that was a withdrawal. And by letting myself cry, I stopped taking those withdrawals out. And maybe it even is a deposit. I read somewhere that your tears contain oxytocin. I don't know if that's actually true. I should validate the facts, but it kind of doesn't even really matter, right? Because what I noticed for myself is that crying makes me feel lighter, more energized. And I just want to offer that back to you. It's not about whether there's oxytocin in your tears or not. It's about how do I feel before and after. This is always stuff that you guys can check in on.
Yeah. And I think it's important just kind of swinging back to that, coming in from a really tricky clinical day. The reason that we're so passionate about this and want to talk about this today is because if we're not conscious about how we're showing up and how we're choosing to spend our spare time, whether that is that kind of blobbing on the couch rest, going for a nap, or whether it's doing something that's more of an active rest, more of a productive type rest that's going to rejuvenate us, if we're not conscious of that, we're at complete risk of our spare time being stolen by whatever happened early in the day, which is exactly what happened to me last week. I had no control after that and I'm the queen of, I just told you I've got a toolbox, and I was at a loss as to how to make myself sparkle again after that experience. And then it stole my evening, it stole the rest of my time. And so I think the reason to tune into this is to reclaim your evenings or whatever time you have away from the clinical environment, especially if, like us, you admit that some days clinical work exhausts you. So I think that's such a great concept, Beck, and you've made so many good points. So yeah, tuning into the type of rest that you need, and that can vary day to day. What's a withdrawal? What's a deposit? Make a list so you don't forget and come back to it when you need a little refresher. Yeah. Did you have anything else to add, Beck?
I just want to take this a little bit further, if you will, now that we've got this nice little concept of deposits and withdrawals, and say that when you get more in tune with your body, when you get more masterful with this, when your list is more top of mind, you're more aware of what affects you, then you can even start to insert more deposits into your clinical day as well. And even stop the withdrawal process as much. So, for example, in my current role, my consultant, we have this beautiful little situation where probably every second patient we're giggling about something, with the patient as well, or outside the room, whatever it is, we're giggling about something. She just kind of has this lighthearted, playful sort of vibe about her. And I've just noticed that I'm kind of like, I'm always ready to laugh when I'm rounding with her. We're always just ready to like let out a laugh altogether. And that's something that she does, conscious or not, that adds deposits into, yes, our day as a part of her team, but probably also for her. She's injected this lighthearted humor into her day. Humor is potentially something that offers deposits for her. And it's not about the specific patient situation, right? Because I've been working with her for months now. I've been rounding with her on all kinds of different patients in all kinds of different situations. It's not her letting the patient situation or the day dictate whether she's going to be lighthearted and humorous or not. It's how she shows up in the day. And I just think that what she's done there is quite striking. I don't often experience that in the clinical environment when somebody is so consistently lighthearted. And I noticed how much that I was just thinking about the other day, perhaps because we did this podcast last week. I was thinking about how much it's just constantly relieving that bit of tension that I have when I'm walking around being very serious in my very serious role with my very serious clinical problems. And that humor that she offers takes away that deposit. It gets rid of that. Takes away that withdrawal. It takes away that tension that I hold. And it goes even further, and she offers this deposit by making me laugh and letting me open up my body and feel relaxed. So just looking for little moments, little things that you can do so in the clinical day that stop that withdrawal process and or add some more deposits into the mix.
And then if you're going to work with a full cup, you probably more naturally like enhance everyone else's deposits and not withdraw from them, which is I think what you're describing. Like you can actually go and give people things. You'll be flowing from this abundant energy. You're just like, yeah. So I think that actually sounds beautiful. That's one of the most beautiful things I've heard. And I think, yeah, that is very special and unique. I love that. I love that. What a beautiful way to carry yourself around the clinical environment, which is obviously very serious most of the time. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Beck. Thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in today. If you have any ideas for what deposits and withdrawals you can make or we can make, pop them in the comments below. And also just let us know how you're doing. Or if you have any topic ideas for the poddy, anything you'd love to hear us talk about, we would love to hear from you. So thanks so much, guys.
Bye, everyone.
I've been waiting all my life for something. I've been down the darkest roads and up